Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Guy Blackburn. This evening, we warmly welcome Wing Commander Michael Garside, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national museum and memorial came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Arthur Wilfred Haselhurst. Arthur Haselhurst was born on the 18th of September 1915 in Melbourne to Enoch and Elvie Haselhurst. Growing up there, he had three younger sisters, Elvie, Ena and Coral. Their father was an engine driver who passed away in 1939. Arthur attended St Peter's School and Scotch College. He was fond of tennis, swimming and billiards. He was a keen Aussie rules footballer playing for Kew United. After leaving school, he studied advertising and found work as an assistant advertising manager with Foy and Gibson. On the 23rd of December 1939, he married Lillian Stanley. The 15th of May 1942, Arthur Haselhurst enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. He trained as a wireless operator and air gunner, and in June 1943 was made sergeant. Haselhurst embarked for overseas service from Melbourne on the 27th of September 1943, arriving in the United Kingdom in November. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners and flight engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Further specialist training followed in England, and in December, Haselhurst was promoted to Flight Sergeant. On the 23rd of September 1944, he was posted to number 463 Squadron, RAAF. As part of Bomber Command, the squadron flew the four-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. The night he joined the squadron, Haselhurst was part of a Bomber Command raid on a viaduct in Dortmund Canal. They took off from the Royal Air Force Base at Waddington at 7:15 p.m, but failed to return. Whilst flying over the target, Haselhurst's Lancaster was seen to collide with another from the squadron and crashed into the ground near Lagenbeck, some 20 kilometres to the north of the target. Three of the crew managed to bail out and land safely. Flight Sergeant Arthur Haselhurst did not survive the crash. Also killed were fellow Australians Warrant Officer John Stinson and Flight Sergeants Fred Hurstwaite and William Schultz, and British Sergeant Arthur Perring. The remains of Perring and three others were recovered from the wreckage and buried in a field belonging to a nearby farm. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. Haselhurst's remains were found and reinterred at the Rheinberg War Cemetery, about 116 kilometres southwest of the crash site. His remains were buried next to those of Hurstwaite, Schultz and Perring. Warrant Officer Stinson's remains were never found. Haselhurst rests there under the inscription, "His duty fearlessly and nobly done, ever remembered." He was 29 years old. Arthur Haselhurst was dearly missed by his family back home, who placed in memoriam notices in the newspaper after his death. One contained the epitaph, "He gave his life that we might live." Flight Sergeant Arthur Haselhurst's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Arthur William Haselhurst, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, And in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director and all of the staff, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.